Morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Just want to start the press conference wishing Coach Dawn all the best as the women's basketball team opens tonight. Really excited for her and her team, too. And then just encourage everybody to go out there and vote. Big week in the United States here come tomorrow. So just like we talked about our football program being a life program, we wore the stickers to vote, the Big Ten Initiative. We wore those last game. And I think that's the best way for everybody's voice to be heard. So go out there and vote and make your voice heard. So with that, we'll open up for questions.
P.J. Rutgers is the next game on the schedule. There's obviously a lot of connections between your staff, some key players. Now, every game counts the same, but is there a little bit extra emotion this week?
And the best way I can say it is they've got an extra week on us. And, our team's looking to be 1-0, period. And we've got a lot of preparation to catch up on. Going in from a bye week from them, they spent probably a lot of time on us, and we've got to catch up really quickly. So we moved on to them yesterday pretty quick. But the whole focus is us to continue to get better, continue to be 1-0, find a way to be better than we were last week. And that takes a lot of energy. It really does. It takes a ton of energy, and that's where our energy is focused.
Is there some added layer of insight that you have from Corey that you feel like Kirk and Harris-Simiak might have, those kinds of things?
I think coaches just in general, you've got to find a way to take the game plan as the game plan comes and what's on the screen, listen to the data, look at that particular team, and you do everything you can to, maybe have some familiarities. But other than that, like, you're taking the data off the screen. And that's the best way to be able to continue to make game plans. And there's a lot to dissect with them. And we've got to find a way to be the best football team we can be come Saturday.
What have you seen out of their quarterback this year? What's impressed you with him?
Well, we just got to him, middle of the day yesterday. He's doing what, he does. I mean, he's throwing with the RPO game, and he's hitting his checkdowns, and the receivers are making plays, and, they're moving him and running him a little bit. So, I mean, you've got to be able to have everything around him being very, very sound, because the way their structure is set is to make sure that they can, if you're going to stop the run, they can RPO you. They can throw the ball down the field. If you forget about the quarterback in the run game, he can run, and he's a really good athlete. So, we've got to play really sound, disciplined defense.
One of the things that came out of Saturday was Quinn's leadership. Max brought it up. What have you seen out of him playing, guard and tackle and
it's a great question, because, Quinn and I, we talk a lot. We have a lot of meetings where he'll just pop in and just chit-chat, And, beginning of the season, Quinn asked me, he's like, are we going to move me from guard to tackle to guard, or are we going to solidify something? And I was like, well, in the perfect world, I want to keep you a guard. He said, okay. That's what I hope for. That's okay. And I remember when we moved him out to tackle in one of the games playing this year, I get this little tap on my shoulder in a game. And Quinn's like, Coach, I thought we were going to keep me where we were going to go. We'll handle this tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow. And he's like, okay. And because he's he takes every conversation we have very seriously, and I'm very truthful and honest with him about everything that we do. But also, what he's all about what's really good for the team, he will do. He's the greatest teammate anybody could ask for, because he is willing to go between guard and tackle to guard. Now, it's not like if you give somebody a choice, would you like to keep swinging around, or would you like to be able to be in one solidified position? They'll probably pick one solidified position. And that was that whole point. And then I talked to him on Sunday after the game, like, listen, I know I said this, but this part isn't ready. Like, this part of where we can solidify you just isn't there yet. It will be there, but I can't sit there and have our conversation trump that. I've got to make sure that we do what's right for the football team. Coach, I understand. I'd prefer that, but I'll do whatever the team needs. And I think that's a perfect example of what you saw this past week. He was one of our players of the week. He was one of our elite playmakers. You watched how fast and athletic and tough he played. But the guy at right tackle, I thought, played really well too for his first start. And don't think that Quinn and him, didn't have a ton of meetings all week leading up to that, because that's Quinn's leadership. Quinn is going to take people under his wing. He's going to make them better. He's going to be able to help them get to where they want to go. He's just such a selfless teammate, and I couldn't ask for anything more out of a leader and a captain than him. And I'm really glad he's playing at a really high level because I think he's elevated that whole O-line room. And again, we have to be able to move some people around, and we got to be flexible. And nobody's been more flexible than Quinn. And I would have loved it not to be as flexible, but that's college football. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and he's had a great understanding of that.
So in that same breath, with the way Phil played at right tackle, what are the chances that you keep those two in the same spot this weekend?
We're going to do everything we can to do that. I think that's the whole plan. That would be the mission, to make sure that we do that. We got to keep getting better, though. There were, as I said, I thought Philip played really well, and he's tough and he's aggressive, but he's still, a redshirt freshman. He took a huge step in his growth, but now he's got to take a gigantic leap, and I know he will. And he's a very transparent learner. He wants to get better. And again, what I've said with Quinn's leadership, that room works incredibly hard, right? Required, unrequired, and he's right at the top of the list of how hard he works. So I think that, again, he got that first start out of the system and played really well. But just like anybody on the football team, the expectation is to change your best and be better this week than we were last week, and just be hyper-focused on that.
The offense hasn't turned the football over in over 14 quarters. Can you remember a stretch like this during your time here at Minnesota where they've been taking care of the ball?
Well, I think that you get what you emphasize and you get what you demand. And I'm not saying just from a coaching perspective. You get that from a player's perspective. You can emphasize and demand anything you want as a coach, but if the players aren't buying into that and then doing that, you're not going to get it. So our job is always to be able to create that trust of whatever we put in front of them. They have the time, consistency, and proof to be able to say that works. And I can see how that influences games. And that's my job as a head coach, to show how the takeaways and the turnovers infect a game. NFL, college, high school, Pop Warner, it all does. And that's part of that 78%. I don't know if I'd be remiss. I don't know if we've had a streak of 14, whatever it is, but that's not what the team's focused on. They're not focused on streaks. They're not focused on what we've done over the last 4 weeks. They're not focused on any of that. This team has learned lessons, right? Left the event and then lived in truth. And I mean that locker room in Michigan was a drawing a line in the sand. And that was a choice by players. They didn't have to do that. They could have threw a pity party for themselves. They could have felt really sad and like, this happened to us and we didn't get that call and that didn't go our way and poor us. That was opposite of that locker room. And I don't know if I can remember a stretch of what you're saying, but I can remember a few locker rooms, only a few locker rooms in 12 years being head coach that were like that at Michigan. And I thought you could tell that we were going to take off from there. Not guaranteed winning games, just take off as a team with our confidence and what we were going to be able to do. So, I mean, Western Michigan, I think, that last year, I don't think we turned the ball over for 8 straight games. So that would be the only streak that I remember because that was so unique and different. But that's how that team was undefeated. I mean, they valued the football. And we watch all over the country when people don't value the football, and even when we don't value the football, and maybe got away with it, right? And if it was different, we wouldn't have got away with it. So, but this team is hyper-focused on what can we get better at, 78%, the ball tackling explosive plays, and then truly living in the moment and living in truth. I think that's hard to find in 2024. I mean, we've been very transparent. I'm not saying more than any other team, but this team, you can coach. And they love football, and they love to be coached. I think that's getting harder and harder to find.
PJ, you always talk about boiling it down to 1 week. Is there anything that you do uniquely to kind of distance from a 4-game winning streak to just focus on now?
No, because we've been doing it. I mean, we do it every week, Andy, every week of my 8 years here, we have a new theme per week. It's hard to connect last week to this week. We have a theme for the year, but then we have weekly themes to keep that turnover, right? We celebrate on Sundays. That's the reason we celebrate. We celebrate in the locker room the way we do. We celebrate on Sunday for, they all get to pat each other on the back and high-five each other, and then they truly move on. And I think that's what you need to be able to not let things run together, whether that's losing, whether that's winning, because last week has nothing to do with this week. Has nothing to do with it. I don't believe in momentum. You know that. I don't believe in shifts. It either is or it isn't, and why was it not? Or why was it? Focus on those things. And you can't emphasize everything. So what do we emphasize in winning? The ball, tackling, explosive plays. And if we can play really sound football, it puts us in games and gives us a chance to win the football game at the end. And then we got to make one more play than the other team.
PJ, I know the portal's not a new concept. Is it still going to be weird to see Athan in a different jersey, knowing the relationships he built here, and have to game plan for him?
I think that there's just a lot of you look on both sides of the ball. There's a lot of people that have a lot of connections, and that can't be the focus. That's not going to be the focus. The focus is on going to get this football team better. They're going to work on being better, I'm sure, on their other side, and we're going to focus on being better. They just have an extra week ahead of us, and so we've got a lot of work to do to play catch up, and to get our football team better, to find a way to be 1-0 against a really good team.
What's the challenge with Kyle Monange?
I don't like to compare players to players, but he's got a lot of Muhammad Ibrahim in him, but probably faster. He's hard to find behind that line, the big line they have. They run a lot of inside zone, outside zone. They do it a lot of different ways. They're getting themselves in the right looks, and then the minute you get an extra hat in the box, they're finding ways to exploit that with their wideouts. But he can play the speed to power. He's got great leverage. He's got great balance, center of gravity, speed, toughness. He delivers blows. We've got to be really good tacklers this week. That's going to be a huge emphasis for our football team. And I think he's one of the best backs in the country, let alone the Big Ten, because he gets hard yards. Anybody can run through the holes. I get that piece. But what do you do when it's not there? He's still getting 3 to 4 when there's nothing there. And I thought that's what Muhammad Ibrahim was so good at, getting so many of those hard yards and doing it very naturally based on the type of the body structure that you have, and using that to your advantage. And he's a very, very talented player. Got a lot of respect for him and what he does.
PJ, where has Anthony grown most this season?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Anthony's grown a lot. I think just in his maturity, the have to, want to piece, whether that's his body, whether it's his technique and fundamentals, the attention to detail and everything in his life. Anthony's taken a huge step, not only as a football player, but as a man. I'm really, really proud of him. That's a lot of work and unrequired for him for sure.
We saw Ja make the huge play at the end, but he played a season low of snaps, 18. Was that injury related?
You go through the season and everybody gets bumped and bruised, and we listen to our medical staff about what people can and cannot do, and then we listen to our players throughout a game. He started the football game and ended the football game. Period. Started, ended, and I think his presence was felt throughout that entire game. We have the ability to get to a lot of different packages, period. I think you saw different packages on that field in the versatility and guys at different positions. And that's something that we can continue to do no matter who's in the game.
What did you see from Daniel Jackson on that 37-yard catch to kind of slow play it and bait that cornerback like that?
I thought he took everything that he's been taught and everything he's learned over the course of his however many years here, and it looks like such a simple routine catch. Well, it's supposed to look simple and routine, but that is actually more difficult than I think people are saying. To be able to slow down, keep that person on your hip, right? Not being able to show your hands too early, right? Late hands it, keep your feet and your balance to be able to almost let your whole body on the low end go dead a little bit, and then make the catch over your outside shoulder and stay in bounds. The way that he's able to have the body control to do that, the awareness to do that in that moment based on the ball and the ball flight, there's a lot of things that go involved in that, and it's part natural, and then it's part you got to learn some of that stuff by failing, about doing some of the wrong things. And I think that he put it all together on that, and that's where it shows his growth. Something that simple like an inside fade or a go route on the outside that he ran, it's almost simple. It's so simple, it's really complex to do. And I'm just glad he was able to put it all together and make a great play. That's what's so fun about him. He can play outside, he can play inside. He can make vertical plays like that. He can make the short posts and all the option stuff. That's what makes him so versatile. He can do all of it. And that's a huge, huge play in the game on the 2nd and 10. Huge play.
That looked like Greg Johnson's best game of the season. What do you think clicked for him?
You got a good eye, Ryan, because you're right. It was his best game of the season. I think, again, it just comes back. It sounds boring. It's not fun to write about. It's just getting better. Like, he just keeps getting better. And these guys don't judge themselves and live in judgment. They truly live in truth on Sunday, put their leather vests on. What can I do better? How can I help the team? Even if I don't play my best, how can I get my teammates to play their best? when you're playing for each other, that's different than playing for something. This team has always played for each other. That's one thing I can always say. And Greg Johnson, beginning of the year, yeah, I mean, he had a lot of areas of improvement. And he's closed the gap on all those, 9 games into the year. And that's what you want. You want your football team from the start of the season to the end of the season to get better. We said at the end of the year, we'll look up and see where we're at. We're not judging ourselves right now. We're not talking about anything external. We're not talking about fighting for something. We're talking about playing for each other and growing and learning and living in truth, leaving the events. And I think our guys are really doing that on the field, off the field. I feel like their relationships are better off the field. They're talk about a life program. I think they're working really hard to make their lives better in every area. And I think that's, again, hard to find in 2024 with teams. And this team is, win or lose, they've continued to do it. And Greg Johnson's a great example of that. Now he's playing at a high level and he's playing with a lot of confidence. But that was going to happen at some point. And if we just keep believing in him, he keeps believing in himself, and we keep showing it as this is what you have to get better at, X, Y, and Z. Not just get better. Like our guys have specific things they have to get better at as an individual, by their position coach, and then as a unit, offense, defense, and special teams, and then as a team with me. And when you focus on those things, you hope your guys really buy into that and get better, and this team has.
Back-to-back road games, does that create a special challenge?
Nope. It's just the next one. I mean, we know we've got home games. We know we got away games, parking lots, aircraft carriers, in the mud, in the rain, in the sunshine, in the cold and warm. Football, you have to be ready to play in it all. I'm sure you all flipped on or saw the Lions in the Green Bay game yesterday. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're home or away, the elements, you can't let the circumstance dictate your behavior. We've got to play our best football for 3 hours, no matter where we go, and we know they'll create a great environment over there. That's for sure.
You have to find a new way to celebrate wins because it looks like your head got a little close to the ceiling there, crowd surfing.
No, we won't find a new way. We'll stay consistent. I was joking with our HR department that I got to fill out a workers' comp form. He got my head a little bit. I was just kidding, Tricia. We were joking around. But I kept it low. I had to dive pretty low. But I've been in that locker room before, so that one's not new. I knew that I had to keep it pretty low. So,
what are some anecdotes of, you talk about the team being connected and playing for each other. What are some anecdotes this year of examples of that happening?
Well, I think look at week 1, right? And we go back to that. Dragan Kesic, right? We miss a game winner. That's not why we lost the game, but it was the last play to go win the game. We had a chance to win the game. We didn't. Cody Lindenberg runs out to him. First thing he says to him is, "I love you." And we don't win that game without Dragan Kesic going 4 for 4. And we don't win Iowa last year without Dragan Kesic going 4 for 4. That statement in that moment, under that situation and that circumstance, the first thing that kid hears is, "I love you," from one of his best friends and his teammate, period. That's the best example I can give you, because it didn't matter if we won or lost from there out. This team had each other's backs. Remember, we're not somewhere. We didn't do anything yet, right? We're going to judge ourselves at the end of the year. That's all we're going to do. We're not judging ourselves now, right? We're just loving each other, staying connected, keep doing it for each other. And it's moments like that you know you have a really, really special team.